Nobody in that room really knew me. Not really. They knew Fred Tucker, the quiet one, the single one, the one without a wife or kids or anything worth mentioning at a New Year's toast. That was fine. Because I learned something a long time ago that most people never figure out. When you're quiet, people stop paying attention to you. And when people stop paying attention to you, you can build an entire life right in front of them and they'll never see it coming. I'd spent 19 years building exactly that. But Jay pushed one time too many. Welcome to Dad's Raw Revenge. Get settled, because this one is going to take you somewhere. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you're going to love it here. Now, let's get into it. December 31st, Portland, Oregon. We decided to celebrate New Year's Eve at my Aunt Beverly's place. She lives in a big craftsman house over in Selwood, the kind of neighborhood where the houses have real character and the people pretend to. Beverly has had the same mismatched furniture since 1994, and dares anyone to say a word about it. Christmas lights still up because she doesn't take them down until February. A wreath on the door that had seen better decades. I love that house, always have. I pulled up around 7:30, sat in my car for a minute before going in. I always do that. Just sit, breathe, prepare, see. I love my family. I genuinely do. But walking into a room full of Tuckers on New Year's Eve requires the same mental preparation as walking into a deposition. You have to know who's going to say what, decide ahead of time how much you're going to let it land, and remind yourself that sparkling water is a perfectly acceptable New Year's Eve drink, and anyone who says otherwise can mind their business. I grabbed the bottle of wine I brought, good wine, not the kind you grab off the discount shelf at 9 p.m., and went inside. The house was already warm and loud the way Beverly's house always is. Music going. The smell of everything good coming from the kitchen. Her living room packed with the particular comfortable chaos of people who've been celebrating together long enough to stop performing for each other. Almost. I said my hellos. Hugged Auntie Beverly. She grabbed me the way she always does, both hands, like she's making sure you're still real. She smelled like her perfume and kitchen spices, and something that just smelled like her specifically, the way certain people have a smell that means safety. You look thin. She pulled back and examined my face the way aunts do. Auntie, I weigh the same I've weighed for 15 years. You look thin. She said it again like I hadn't spoken. Pressed a plate of something into my hand before I could argue. That's Beverly. The conversation is a formality. The food is the real communication. I made my way into the living room, and that's when I heard him. Jay. My brother Jay Tucker has a laugh that enters a room about 4 seconds before he does. Big, booming, calibrated, whether he knows it or not, to make sure everyone knows he's arrived. He was standing near the fireplace holding court, his wife Donna beside him in a red dress, laughing at something he'd just said. My cousin Derek across from them, nodding along with the particular enthusiasm of a man auditioning for the role of best audience. Derek has been laughing at Jay's jokes since 1987. Some men find their calling early. Jay is 6 years younger than me, 45 years old, has somehow decided that makes him the authority on how a man's life is supposed to look. Good job if you can get it. He spotted me across the room, and his face opened up into that wide, easy grin. Freddie. He only calls me Freddie in public. I've asked him not to. He does it anyway because Jay does what Jay wants and always has. He grabbed my shoulder when I got close, one of those grips that's supposed to feel like affection but lands like a point being made. Man, I wasn't sure you were coming. Figured you might be home with, I don't know. What do you do on New Year's Eve, Fred? Same thing I'm doing now. I said it flat, standing here talking to you. Derek laughed. Donna smiled politely into her drink. Jay clapped my back and moved on to the next thing, because Jay always moves on to the next thing. That's his gift. Never sits in a moment long enough to feel its weight. I sat in moments. That was mine. The evening moved the way these things do. Food passed around. Drinks refilled. Beverly held the room the way she always has, laughing loud, pulling people into conversations, making sure nobody stood alone too long. I've always loved her for that. I was actually having a good time. I should have left at 10. 11:50. Beverly started gathering everyone for the countdown toast. Glasses got filled. The TV volume went up. That hush fell over the room. That specific New Year's hush where everyone gets quiet at the same time, without anyone asking them to. Beverly raised her glass first. Said something beautiful about family and new beginnings, and the grace of getting to do this one more year together. Her voice caught slightly at the end the way it does when she means something completely. Everyone was smiling. I was smiling. And then Jay cleared his throat. I just want to add something real quick. Here we go. He stepped slightly forward. Glass raised, the comfortable confidence of a man who has never once questioned whether the room wanted to hear from him. Been a good year. He nodded slowly, looking around. Donna and I closed on the new place over in Lake Oswego. Business is strong. Kids are thriving. He smiled wide. Some of us are really figuring it out. Turned and looked directly at me. Direct. Deliberate. Making sure everyone's eyes followed his. And then some of us, that easy smile spreading wider, the kind that makes people think he's joking when he is absolutely not. Some of us are 51 years old. No wife. No kids. Still driving that same beat-up car. Nothing really to show for 5 decades on this earth. But hey, at least you showed up right. Must be tough. He paused. Let it breathe. Looked around the room like he was inviting everyone to agree with him. I mean, we keep waiting for Fred to figure it out. Right? A small laugh. Donna shifted beside him. Derek looked at the floor. But hey. Jay raised his glass in my direction like a toast. Like a joke. Like I was the punchline he'd been building toward all night. I'm glad you showed up. The room went completely silent. Not the good kind. I felt it before I processed it. That particular silence that falls when something has gone too far, and everyone in the room knows it and nobody moves. Beverly's smile didn't falter, but her eyes cut straight to me, sharp and worried and sorry all at once. Donna looked down at her glass. Derek laughed, just once, quickly, then stopped when nobody joined him. 51 years old, no wife, no kids, beat-up car, nothing to show for it. Said like a verdict. Like I was a case that had already been decided, and the jury hadn't even needed to deliberate. I looked at my brother standing there with his Lake Oswego house and his strong business, and his kids are thriving, and I felt something move in my chest. Not anger. Something quieter than anger. Something that had been patient for a very long time, and had just decided tonight was the night. I set my glass down on the side table. Slowly. The way you set something down when you want your hands completely free. Don't worry about me, Jay. My voice came out even. Calm, almost bored. I'm doing just fine. He laughed, raised his glass to the room like he'd landed the joke of the evening. That's what I love about you, Freddie. Always so, Beverly. I turned to my aunt, smiled at her, real and warm and nothing performative about it. That ham is outstanding. Best you've ever done. Beverly blinked, then smiled back, wide and relieved and grateful. Thank you, baby. The countdown started on the TV. 10, 9, 8. The room filled with noise the way it always does. Glasses raised. People leaning into each other. Jay was still talking. I stopped hearing him. Because something had just clicked into place inside me. Clean and quiet. Like a key turning in a lock that had been waiting 19 years for the right moment. He had no idea. Not about Harriet. Not about the kids. Not about the building with my name on it, sitting 12 miles from where he was standing right now, running his mouth like a man with nothing to lose. Not about any of it, and I had spent 19 years making absolutely sure of that. They say pride is the most expensive thing a man can own. My brother Jay had been running up that bill for years. January 3rd was the day it finally came due. January 3rd. 3 days into the new year, and Portland was doing what Portland does in winter. Gray sky sitting low over everything. Rain coming down in that quiet, persistent way that doesn't dramatic about it, just steady and patient, like it has nowhere else to be. I was at my desk by 7:15. Coffee from the place on Southeast Hawthorne that I've been going to for 11 years. Carla behind the counter already had it waiting when I walked in, because that's what 11 years gets you. A medium dark roast, and a woman who remembers your order without being asked. Small things. I've always been a man who notices small things. The office was quiet at that hour. Just the way I like it. Our building sits on the edge of the Pearl District, 12 floors northwest facing, the kind of view that makes people stop talking mid-sentence when they see it for the first time. I'd watched that happen more times than I could count. Someone walks in ready to negotiate, and then they hit the windows and just stop. Real estate is 70% psychology. The other 30% is knowing which 30% matters. I had 3 calls scheduled for the morning, a development meeting at 11, and somewhere in the back of my mind, quiet and unhurried. The memory of Jay's face on New Year's Eve. I let it sit there, didn't push it away, didn't dwell on it either. Just let it be what it was. My phone rang at 9:47. I looked at the screen. Jay. I set my coffee down. I let it ring twice. Not because I was being dramatic. I genuinely needed those 2 seconds to decide what version of myself was going to answer. The brother. The businessman. The man who had been quietly holding Jay Tucker's life together since 2009. I answered on the third ring. Jay. Fred. His voice was different. I noticed it immediately. Jay has a voice that's always slightly too big for a phone call. Loud. Confident. Takes up space even through a speaker. This wasn't that voice. Hey man. You got a minute? Oh, he needed more than a minute. I've got a few. I leaned back in my chair, waited. He took a breath. I could hear him moving around, pacing probably. Jay always paces when he's uncomfortable. Has since he was a kid. So look, I'm just gonna say it straight. A pause. The Terran contract fell through. I didn't say anything. Completely fell through Fred. The developer pulled out Thursday night. No warning, just done. Another breath. I've got vendors expecting payment next week. I've got 2 guys on payroll I'm working on it, but it's... He stopped. Started again. It's bad, man. I knew about the Terran contract. I knew more about Jay's business than Jay probably realized. The silence stretched between us like taffy. Fred, you still there? I'm here. Okay, so Look, I wouldn't call if I had another option. You know that, right? I want you to know that. Sure, Jay. I know. I said it easy. No edge on it. How much? He told me the number. I didn't flinch. On the outside anyway, on the inside I was thinking about New Year's Eve. About the way he'd turned and looked directly at me in front of the whole family. About Beverly's worried eyes cutting across the room. Jay. Yeah. Come to my office tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. A beat of silence. Your office. Something in his voice, confusion, maybe recalibration. Like he was updating a file in his head that hadn't been touched in a while. Yeah, okay. You're still over on. I'll text you the address. Okay. A pause. Then quieter, genuinely quieter, Fred. I appreciate it, ma'am. I mean it. I looked out at the Pearl District skyline, rain running down the glass in long, slow lines. 9 o'clock, Jay. Don't be late. He was late. 9:18 when the front desk called up to tell me my brother was in the lobby. Of course he was. I told them to send him up and swiveled my chair toward the door. I heard him before I saw him, not his laugh this time, just his footsteps. And then the elevator opened, and Jay Tucker walked out into the 14th floor reception area of Tucker and Associates Property Group, and just stopped. I watched it happen through the glass wall of my office, watched him take in the space, the reception desk, the artwork, the view hitting him from across the room like a wall of cold water. Natalie at the front desk smiled and said something to him. He nodded slowly without really hearing her. There it is. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, walked out to meet him. Jay looked at me, really looked at me, in a way he hadn't in probably 20 years. Fred, he gestured vaguely at the space around him. How long have you? Come on back. I walked him past the open floor. For Jay it looked like walking through a room he'd been wrong about his entire life. Good. I opened the boardroom door and gestured him in. He walked through and then stopped so fast I almost ran into him. Because sitting at the head of that table, composed, elegant, a cup of tea in front of her, and a leather portfolio open beside it, was Harriet. The silence that followed was one of the most complete silences I have ever witnessed in my life. Jay didn't move, didn't speak. I watched the color change in his face, going through shades like a man who can't find the right channel. There she was, the woman he'd called too quiet, too simple, not the kind of woman a man like him ends up with. He'd said that, out loud, to her face, 22 years ago in the parking lot of a cheesecake factory in Beaverton. She'd told me that story on our second date, and I'd thought, this woman is going to change my life. I was right. Harriet looked up from her portfolio, met Jay's eyes, smiled the way she always smiles, warm and completely unrattled, like she'd been expecting him, like this was just another Tuesday. Jay. Her voice was calm as river water. It's been a long time. Jay turned to me, back to her, back to me. Fred, what how? He couldn't finish a sentence. just kept starting new ones and running out of road. I pulled out the chair across from Harriet and sat down, nodded at the seat beside him. "Sit down, Jay." He sat, slowly, like a man who'd forgotten how chairs worked. I opened the folder in front of me and slid a single photograph across the table. He looked down at it. Fred and Harriet on their wedding day. Spring in Portland, 2005. Cherry blossoms coming down like slow pink snow in Lad's edition. Harriet in ivory. Me in a charcoal suit that Harriet had picked out because she said I had no business choosing my own clothes for important occasions. She wasn't wrong. And then the second photo. Our 3 kids, Russell 14 now, already taller than me and deeply unimpressed by everything. Nora 11, sharp as a tack and has her mother's eyes. And little Davis 8 years old and built like a small freight train. Jay stared at those photos for a long time. I let him stare. Finally he looked up. His voice had gone somewhere small. 19 years. 19 years. I said it clean. No drama on it. Just a fact. And you never said anything. Not once. To anybody. Harriet spoke before I could. We didn't feel the need to announce our life to people who weren't paying attention to it. Lord, I love this woman. Jay looked at her. Something moving across his face that I hadn't seen before. Not embarrassment exactly. Deeper than that. The particular look of a man realizing that the story he'd been telling himself about other people's lives was never the true story. Harriet, he stopped, started again. I didn't know. I want you to know I know why you're here, and I'm going to help you. Because you're my brother, and that means something to me whether it means something to you or not. He exhaled. But first, I folded my hands on the table, looked at him steady. I needed you to sit in this room, in my building, across from my wife. I let that word land, wife, and understand exactly who you were talking to on New Year's Eve. The rain tapped against the 14th floor windows. Jay Tucker, loud, flashy, always the favorite Jay, sat across from me with nothing left to say. First time in 51 years. If you have been listening for a while, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and it means everything to us. Hit the like button while you're at it, and drop your thoughts in the comment. Jay was still sitting across from me in that boardroom, looking like a man who'd walked into a building expecting a storage closet and found a cathedral instead. The photos were still on the table between us. Our wedding day. The kids. 19 years of a life he never bothered to ask about. I'd waited a long time for this moment. And now that it was here, I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I was just settled, like a house that had finally stopped shifting on its foundation. Harriet had her hands folded on her portfolio, patient, unbothered. The way she always is when something important is happening. She goes still like the eye of a storm and lets everything else move around her. Jay kept looking at the photos, then at me, then at Harriet, like he was trying to triangulate something that refused to line up. Finally he said, "How did you two even?" He gestured between us. "I mean, when did this?" 2 months after you ended things with her. I said it plain. We met at a fundraiser over in the Alberta Arts District. She spilled coffee on my jacket. I told her it was fine. She didn't believe me. I glanced at Harriet. She bought me a new jacket anyway. I liked that about her. I looked back at Jay. She does what she says she's going to do. Unlike some people at this table. Jay rubbed the back of his neck. That thing he's done since childhood when he's cornered and knows it but hasn't figured out his next move yet. "Fred, man," his voice dropped. "Why didn't you ever tell me? All these years, not once. Why?" I looked at him for a long moment. Calm, unbothered, the way a man looks at a question he's known the answer to for a very long time. Because I never felt the need to share my life with people who had already decided what my life was. I let that sit. Jay opened his mouth, closed it again. First time I had ever watched my brother have absolutely nothing to say. Harriet quietly set her cup down, let the silence breathe exactly as long as it needed to. Then Jay looked at her, something moving across his face that I hadn't seen there before. Not embarrassment exactly, something deeper than embarrassment. The particular expression of a man who has just realized that the story he'd been telling himself about other people's lives was never the true story. Not even close. Harriet, he stopped, tried again. Back then I said things I had no business saying, to your face, in that parking lot. He exhaled. I know sorry doesn't cover it, but Jay. Her voice was gentle, not warm exactly. Gentle the way a doctor is gentle right before they tell you the truth. I stopped needing your apology a very long time ago. She paused. I have a beautiful life, a full one. She glanced at me, those eyes doing that thing they've done to my chest for 19 years. Your brother made sure of that. Jay looked at me, something raw and unguarded sitting right behind his eyes. Fred. His voice came out rough at the edges. I want to say something and I need you to actually hear me. I'm listening. I've been an idiot. He said it straight. No decoration on it. Not just New Year's. Not just tonight. I mean, my whole life with you I've been an idiot. I let that land. Let it mean exactly what it meant. Jay. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice still quiet. I never needed volume to make a point. I want to walk you through something, just so we're clear, just so there are no more misunderstandings between us going forward. He nodded. March 2009. I watched his face. You were 4 months behind on rent. You were about to lose the apartment. Donna was pregnant with your first kid. You remember that? His jaw tightened. Yeah. You called me at 11 at night. I wired the money by 7 the next morning. You said you'd pay me back in 60 days. I paused. You never mentioned it again. You came to me on a Sunday, showed up at my door without calling. I sat with you for 4 hours going through your books. I restructured your pitch. I kept my voice even, steady like I was reading a weather report. You were back on your feet by February. Jay's throat moved. January 2015. The loan. I let that one sit for a second. The bank didn't approve that, Jay. I guaranteed it personally. Put up assets as collateral. The banker was a client of mine. I called in a favor I'd been holding for 3 years. I looked at him directly. You threw a party when it came through. Told everyone you'd finally gotten the bank to believe in you. I'm not telling you this to hurt you, and I meant that. Every word. I'm telling you because you stood up in Beverly's living room in front of our entire family and implied that my life was small, that I had nothing, that I was somehow, I searched for the right word, less than. I sat back, and I needed you to understand what less than actually looked like, and what it didn't. Jay Tucker, who always had something to say, who never met a silence he didn't want to fill, said absolutely nothing. First time in recorded history. Harriet quietly closed her portfolio, stood up, smoothed her jacket, gave me a kiss. I have at 10 o'clock. She looked at Jay one last time, not unkindly, just, finally, like closing a book she'd already finished. It was good to see you, Jay. Take care of yourself. And she walked out. We both watched her go. Jay stared at the door for a moment after it closed. Then he turned back to me, and I saw it, the thing I hadn't expected to see. His eyes were wet. Not crying. Jay Tucker would not cry in a boardroom, but close. Closer than I'd ever seen him. Fred. His voice came out rough at the edges. I've been an idiot my whole life, haven't I? It wasn't really a question. You've had your moments. I said it dry. Couldn't help it. 19 years of Harriet rubbing off. Something flickered across his face. Almost a smile. Almost. What do I do now, man? Just, what do I do? I stood up, buttoned my jacket, walked to the window and looked out at the Pearl District below. The rain was finally starting to ease up. Portland doing what Portland does, making you sit through the gray until the light decides to come back. I'm going to connect you with Tom Greer over at Pacific Northwest Capital. He owes me one. I'll make the call this afternoon. By end of week, you'll have a bridge loan to cover your vendor payments and payroll. I turned around. I'm also going to send Kevin, my operations guy, to spend 2 days with your team. Your back end is a mess, Jay. Has been for years. Kevin will fix it. Jay blinked. You're my brother. Simple. Final. I told you I'd help you and I will. That doesn't change. He stood up slowly, looked around the room one more time. The view, the building, the quiet evidence of a life fully built. You've had all this whole time, and you just let me. He couldn't finish it. Let you what, Jay? I looked at him steadily. Talk. Sure, I let you talk. I walked toward the door and opened it, but I never let it change anything about who I was or what I was building. That's the difference between you and me. I held the door. You needed people to know. I just needed it to be real. He walked past me into the hallway, stopped, turned around. looked at me for a long moment, with the look of a man recalculating the last 20 years in real time. For what it's worth, his voice dropped. I'm proud of you, man. I should have said that a long time ago. I let that land. Let it mean what it meant. Get home safe, Jay. Roads are slick. He nodded, walked to the elevator, pressed a button. The doors opened, and he stepped in, and for just a second, right before the doors closed, I saw him. Really saw him. Not the loud one. Not the flashy one. Not the favorite. Just my brother, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, and more honest than he'd ever been. The doors closed. I stood in that hallway for a moment, just breathing. Then I took the stairs up one floor to my private office, the one that doesn't show up on the company directory. The one Harriet had decorated because she said my taste ran toward aggressively beige. And I sat down in my chair. My phone had a text from Harriet already. How'd it go? I smiled. Typed back, he finally knows. 3 dots. Then, did it feel good? I looked out the window. The rain had stopped completely. Just like that. Portland sky cracking open. Pale winter light coming through in long, quiet strips over the rooftops. Russell had a basketball game tonight. Nora had been working on a science project about river ecosystems, the Willamette specifically, because that's my daughter, making everything local and personal. Davis had requested tacos for dinner with the focused intensity that only an 8-year-old can bring to a food decision. I typed back. It felt like enough. See you at 6. Tell Davis yes to the tacos. I set my phone face down on the desk. Outside the window, Portland was waking back up. Streets shining, light returning. The city moving forward the way cities do, unbothered and unhurried. Some people spend their whole lives making noise just to feel significant. I spent mine quietly building something important. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family stories. I will see you on the next one.